Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how I made this DIY graduation centerpiece. You'll notice this has 4 different pictures in it, and that's because we're hosting a party with 4 graduates and I needed to create something that would let us showcase all 4 people and still fit and not be too tall for the table. So I needed width and I needed some height. So this is what I came up with. You may notice these are all for the same person. Well, this is just kind of my mock-up as we're trying to figure out what we're doing. And so that'll be, of course, changed out to be one of each girl. So I started with this great Dollar Tree galvanized metal container. You can see I did frame up the pictures with 3 different colors. These are our graduation colors. So I really wanted to pull those colors in and kind of add a little extra pizzazz to the centerpiece. And then I did also add 3 of the pom-poms and hot glued those to dowel rods and stuck them into this container. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I put that together. If at any time in this video you're finding that something has been helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you take just a second and push the like button. And if you too are planning a graduation or like to host a lot of parties or do a lot of holiday decorating, I do a lot of that kind of thing on my channel too. So take a second and subscribe to that too. Let's get started. Okay, let's take a look at the supplies. First, I've got my container. This was a $1 container I got at Dollar Tree. I did paint it this light blue color just because that's the color of our graduation. I use this Rust-Oleum gloss protective enamel. It's like a harbor blue color. I also use Styrofoam. That happens to be the exact right size. Fits into this container, and that's what I'll put my picks into. These are dowel rods that I got at Walmart, and you'll see I painted them gold, blue, and white using these acrylic paints. And I've got this paper in a gold glitter, which that's a Cricut paper. Then I've got this light blue cardstock. Both of them are cardstock. And I'm going to use those and cut them to be my photo frames. You'll see I've got 3 different layers that I cut out of these papers, and then the senior pictures go on top of those frames. Got white tissue. I'm going to show you how I cut that up and use it as shred in the container. And I've got glue dots, scissors, and all kinds of adhesives, tapes, and this glue. They make a lot of different lengths of the dowel rods and even different diameters. These are the ones that I've selected. I needed something a little bit longer for some of the projects I'm doing. You can choose to leave them just the wood color. It actually looks pretty nice. A lot of people do that. For this project, I am going to paint these blue. So I'm just going to use my foam brush to get this blue paint on these dowel rods. So you'll notice here that I'm painting these dowel rods in 3 different colors. I do several in blue, then I switch over to some gold paint, and then finally I paint some of them in white. Those are the colors of our party, and so I just want to have them ready. I'm going to be doing pom-poms in all different colors as well, so having these dowel rods ready to go will really be helpful. It only takes a few minutes for these to dry, so I could easily get a couple of different coats on just to make sure that color was looking good on all of the dowel rods that I was preparing. Okay, so I'm going to start making my pom-poms using the tool that I have here. You also see I have a couple of different ribbons. I'm going to use this to tie the pom-pom once I get it pulled together. And then I need to really start by cutting some of this ribbon. I use about 14-15 inches. Really depends on how long you want your strings to come off of your dowel rods and your pom-pom when you put them into your centerpiece. But here I measured about 14 inches of each string, and I am doing 2 different strings just to get some color coming off of the pom-poms in the centerpiece. And I like to just do that before I start making the pom-poms so that once I get the pom-pom ready, I can easily just tie it off. Sometimes I forget, but you always see me try. So this is the template that I cut. It's 4 inches by 6 inches. We're going to be wrapping the tool around the 4-inch part because that's about the size of the pom-pom we're wanting to make. I'm just trying to unravel some of it. It's a lot easier to work with if it's not tied on the spool. And so I'm going to wrap it around 17 to 20 times is what I like to do. I just use my finger to hold down that beginning strand as I wrap it around. And try to keep count as I go just so that I can be consistent about my size of my pom-pom. You can get this tulle ribbon anywhere, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, you can get it at Joann Fabrics, you can get it at Walmart. I've never looked for it at Target, but it's really easy to find, and they have so many different colors. And so in my project, I'm going to be using some light blue and some gold and some white. So cutting this off, and once I do that, I've got to get this off of the cardboard template. So I just do that by sliding it off here. And then I've got to find the center point. So got to put it down, and I'm going to tie this ribbon around right in the middle. It is pretty important that you're tying the ribbon with equal amounts of this pom-pom on each side. Otherwise, your pom-pom is going to be really lopsided, and one side will be much longer than the other. So you can start to tie it, get that single knot in, but before you tie the double knot, just make sure it's right in the middle. And once you do feel like you've got it centered pretty well, then you want to go ahead and get that second knot in and just tie that super tight, because you don't want it coming undone while you are then shaping and fluffing your pom-pom. So I'm getting that second knot in here right now. And then once you do that, the second part then is going to be to cut your loops. And I use my finger, and I just try to kind of thread my finger back through where that loop was. Sometimes I nail it and I get it all the way through, and other times I kind of have a harder time. This time was a lot easier. So I got my finger in there, and then I grab my scissors and I stick them through that same path, and then I just make a cut. I find this to be the easiest way to cut the tulle. And then I flip it over to the other side. I make my way through that loop with my finger again just to find the path. And then once I do, I'll stick those scissors through and cut it again. Sometimes I can't find my way to the end, and I just try to kind of separate it out and figure out where I can get my scissors through and cut that part. And then I'll make my way, through the rest of the loops. It's fine if you don't cut all the loops at once. It's not a big deal at all. It's pretty normal as you start fluffing the bow to actually find some loops that somehow were missed when you did that initial cut. And all you do is just keep grabbing your scissors and cutting those loops that you missed whenever you find them. Again, it's just not a big deal at all. You do want to make sure you find them and cut them, because that's what's going to make your pom-pom fluffy, is to have all those cut loops. And so this is where you really come in and you start fluffing, and you want to pull the layers apart of the tulle. You want to pull some forward, pull some to the sides, because you're really trying to get that tulle kind of up into a ball, into a pom-pom. And so you want it kind of going all different directions. And so that's what I'm doing here. You'll see sometimes I pick up my scissors because I find different loops that I missed. But just continuing to get that pom-pom fluffed. And once that pom-pom is fluffed and ready, it's time to go ahead and glue on the dowel rod. So I open up those to where the strings, where that knot is on the string, and I'm going to put some glue right in there and poke my dowel rod in, and then just kind of squeeze around the dowel rod. So my hot glue is ready. I'm going to put a pretty generous dab in there on the knot, just because I really want it to stick to that dowel rod. And then I want some of that tulle even around the knot to come down and kind of close in on it. So that's why I need even some extra. I'll even just pipe a little bit in little spots around the dowel rod. I'm holding it in, it takes about 30 seconds or so for that to really set. So I want it to really set up on that knot, but then also I want to get the rest of that glue in there and just tuck, the tulle up around that knot. Just kind of make a full circle. It kind of just closes that circle on the bottom part. Just burnt my finger a little bit. I got to be careful. It's hard with the tulle because you want to squeeze it, but yet the glue just comes through there so quickly, and it's so dang hot. So once you get it ready, you can still come in and trim it up a little. This is where you just look for areas of your pom-pom that are a little too long that might need to be trimmed. So I'm going to go ahead and make another one, because I will have 2 pom-poms in my centerpiece. I may get another blue. I actually don't think I think I'm probably going to have one blue and one white in the centerpiece I'm making today, but just to kind of show you a quick additional pom-pom, I'm doing it here kind of in fast speed motion. I missed a lot of loops on this one. I found myself picking up my scissors a lot, and then gluing in the dowel rod and getting that ready. So the first thing I did was to get my frames cut. Now if you don't have a Cricut, you could really just do rectangles, and you would just make each rectangle a little bit bigger than the next. I would recommend a paper trimmer. If you don't have a Cricut machine, I don't think you'd want to do all that with your scissors. So a paper trimmer would let you at least keep straight lines. I found a frame in Cricut Design Space. It was 99 cents. Just didn't seem like a big deal, and it seemed easier than trying to design my own. So I just quickly cut out all of my frames in all three colors: gold, white, and blue. And once I had those all cut out, I needed to glue the three different layers together. So I just started out by putting a glue dot in each corner of each color of frame and gluing the smallest to the middle size, and then the middle size to the larger size. You could use a glue, like a tape runner. I worried because of the weight of all this paper and that heavy kind of glitter cardstock, and then of course the senior picture in the middle. My concern was if I didn't use glue dots that it would fall apart. Glue dots just really, in my experience, they hold so well. I just trust them not falling apart more than I do tape runner. I just don't think tape runner is that strong of adhesive. So anyhow, I just glued all of these sets together so that they'd be ready to attach the senior picture to. And then I went ahead and put a glue dot in each corner of that senior picture so that I could take that wallet size senior picture and glue dot it into or onto that triple frame that I just created with those gold, white, and blue layers. And you'll see when I put the picture on the frame here that I did the frames large enough so that I could really see the color all the way around that senior picture. Next, we glue our picture frames onto the dowel rod. Here you might notice I'm gluing them back to back on each side. I did that so you could see them from either side of the table. In hindsight, I think I would have only put them facing one side, and I would have done a second set of pictures on the opposite side. The only extra cost of that is the additional dowel rods, which are so cheap it doesn't matter. I think that just would make it look better from both sides of the centerpiece. So now that I've got those ready, I'm sticking the styrofoam into the container. I need to do that so that I can start poking these dowel rods in. I think the hardest thing is just kind of figuring out at what angle do you need to put these picks in so that you're able to get all your pictures. In our case, we have 4 girls. You may notice these are all my daughter. This is just because I'm putting this together as our sample. We're going to do kind of an assembly line to do all the ones we're doing. But we need to be able to get 4 pictures in our centerpiece. And so I've just got mine kind of fanned out. And again, when we do the rest of them, I think I'll have another 4 set going on the back side to show the other side of the table. Once I got the pictures into the centerpiece, I started adding my pom-poms. This is what really then lets you get some different color. And again, this is why I figured I'd be better off having that second set of pictures on the other side of the pom-poms instead of the back of these pictures, because some of these pictures won't even be viewable on the other side of the pom-pom the way I've got it right here. So now I'm going to take this 2019 that I cut with my Cricut using a 99-cent cut file that I found in Cricut Design Space. So I'm just going to add the glue straight onto my dowel. This is going to help me line that dowel up on the part of the number that has the most paper to attach it to. So you can see that here where I'm attaching it to the 0 and the 9. And just hold that for about 30 seconds and let that set before you start pushing down too much into the styrofoam. But once that gets dry, you can go ahead and set that pick into your display. I am breaking off my stick, and actually this particular, I put the year on one of my Wilton Treat sticks. They're just so much easier to break off than those wooden dowels. So I thought since I had some of those left over from another project, I'd go ahead and use that for my 2019. And I just cut that to be much shorter and to fall in line right below the photo picks in my centerpiece. I'm not sure if you can tell, but the styrofoam is a little wobbly in this container. At the beginning I said it was a perfect fit, and it's almost a perfect fit, but I'm going to cut these strips of cardstock, roll them up, and tuck them around the styrofoam, kind of in between the styrofoam and that galvanized tin container. And that's just really going to tighten up that space so that every time I move or touch the centerpiece, that round piece of styrofoam isn't shaking. And that's what you see me doing here. Just took me one sheet of 8.5 by 11, and I was able to work my way all around that centerpiece and really tighten up that space. So then the next thing I want to do is get some tissue paper shred into this container, because you can see this is a shorter container. You don't want your guests looking down and seeing that styrofoam. And of course now I've got that rolled up paper along the sides of the styrofoam. So I'm just using a package of tissue paper, and I'm not unfolding it, and I'm cutting really thin pieces of that. And then once I do that, I'm going to grab the end of each piece and just shake it, and that's going to loosen up that tissue and create this tissue shred. And just a small bit of that package of tissue actually creates a lot of tissue shred, which you can see here that you can use then to stuff inside of the container and really cover all that styrofoam. And so once you get it kind of shaken out, you need to be tucking it in kind of all of those crevices and underneath, anything like your 2019 year. Now here you see me cutting it in half. Since I didn't even unfold that tissue, you do have some really long pieces of tissue shred. So I always like to cut it in half if I have something where a lot of it's showing on the top. You could even cut it into thirds if you really wanted smaller pieces. And of course you can really vary the width. If you cut the strips really skinny, you're going to end up with really skinny tissue paper shred. So this is just a great touch for filling up these centerpieces in a really super cheap way, since you can get a packet of tissue for less than $1.25 at a lot of places, and then you can prepare that tissue package and fill up many of these centerpieces. And this is our final centerpiece. I think it turned out really well. Like I said in the video, I will, next time around when I make these, I will not be putting a picture on the back side. Instead, it'll be a front-sided only pick. And then on the back side, I'll put 4 additional picks, and that picture will face the back side. And I think that'll be a lot better, because if you're sitting on the opposite side of the centerpiece, it's still really pretty because you've got the pom-poms. I just want the girls to show on both sides. So hopefully that was helpful. If you found it helpful, please take a second and like. And if you do a lot of holiday decorating or party planning or have graduation coming up, please also subscribe.